Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. My name is Scott. I'll be your host today. Got a solo podcast coming at you today. We're going to bring you up to date with Ironman training, tell you how that's been going. And listen, I want to apologize for last week. We didn't put out an episode. I had committed myself to putting out an episode every single Sunday. And I told you guys that on the podcast. And last week was the first time we failed in quite some time. I will say I did have an excuse. We did have a bit of a family emergency that I had to get to, and the podcast had to take a back seat for a little bit. I know, blasphemy, but it's just one of those things. I got to tell you, I don't really like talking about personal, private, family stuff on podcasts or on social media. I like to kind of keep that myself. Maybe that's my downfall. A lot of people like to hear all that personal stuff, and maybe that's part of the reason why some people are successful in that and some people are not. But for me, I like to keep the private stuff private, but I'll give you some stuff this week on how training's been going and how my focus has been going. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. As always, you can find this in the back episodes of our podcast at our website, ordinarymarathoner.com. Check it out if you get a chance. You can also find them on the aggregators, places like Stitcher and TuneIn and iTunes. You download that podcast app to your iPhone. Look up Ordinary Marathoner. If you like the show, hit that subscribe button. You'll never miss a new episode that way. We're also now on YouTube. You can find our podcast over on YouTube. It's just another avenue for you guys to listen to if that's something that you enjoy. Just throwing up the podcast on the video right there, and maybe it's easier for you if you're at work. You can kind of sneak that little window in the corner and hit that play button with your earphones on. No one knows what you're doing. They think you're working, but you're listening to the podcast. Not that I'm giving you that kind of idea. I don't want to get anyone to get fired or nothing, but just do it. We created, I guess, our slideshow video from the Ordinary Marathon, this past year's virtual race that we did in April and May. And I want to thank all you guys for putting your pictures up there and participating in the social media aspect of the race. This was my first time ever making a slideshow presentation like this. I think it came out really good. I'd love for you guys to check it out. Throw some comments in the comments section let me know what you think. My daughter does judge me based on my YouTube subscribers. All the channels that she watches, they have like 200,000 subscribers, millions of subscribers, whatever they got. And Dad, how many subscribers you got? 22. So she judges me. Help me out. I have to look like a hero for my daughter. That's how I'm guilting you into subscribing to our YouTube channel. But we got lots more to come on that channel. We've been busy trying to mess around with it. But yeah, there'll be more things to come. I promise. We got some big plans. What else we got? We got our Twitter account at Ord Marathoner. That's ORD Marathoner. Follow me there and I'll follow you back, or we can get the conversation going on our Facebook group. It's called Ordinary Marathoners. It's a closed group, so you got to add yourself to it. We're now over 600 members. Lots of positive support over there for your running, your exercising, your triathlons, whatever you're doing. If you're a beginner, if you're experienced ultra marathoner, it doesn't really matter. We got a lot of people over there, really supportive group. So if you're a Facebook person, I definitely encourage you to join it. You can join conversation. You could be a lurker, whatever you like. Just add yourself to the group. We'll put you right through, and you can join the conversation with us. So we're moving on to Ironman Lake Placid, which is now in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today. Man, even saying it just makes me shudder. It's been a long kind of slog for me this year, not as successful as last year. And I don't know, I kind of have to attribute that to last year was my first time ever doing an Ironman. And the fear and the anxiety that it brought me forced me to train at a very high level, a very focused level. I lost a lot of weight. I got down to 203 pounds was my race weight. Today I was 235. How does a guy training for an Ironman gain 32 pounds in a year? I do not know. I honestly do not know. Now, you'd like to say that I probably haven't been training. And truth of the matter is, no, I haven't been training as much, but I've been training pretty well. Now, you guys might remember that I had Michael Waterhouse on the show last time, 2 weeks ago, and we talked about running our next race, and I signed up. I actually did sign up for the Hartford Marathon in October, and he signed up for the half. And so I downloaded a marathon training program because I wanted to see what it looked like. I wanted to see where I'd be. And I got to tell you, folks, I downloaded a Hal Higdon program. And I do much more work than this marathon training program. Now, granted, obviously I'm training for an Ironman. It's different training. But I feel like I've been slacking off on that training a little bit. But yet I still do a lot more than the normal sort of marathon training program. So again, I'm gaining weight. Now, the diet hasn't been good. It hasn't been awful. It's just been a slow gain is what it's been. It's been, +5. I gain 5, and then I'm like, a trigger goes off my head, and I say, all right, you got to draw the line, and you just got to focus. And it works for a few days or a few weeks. I lose a few pounds, and then next thing I know, I'm up 5 again. And it's sort of like this vicious ladder. You gain 5, you lose 3, you gain 5, you lose 3, you gain 5, plus or minus a few here and there. But that's exactly what's been happening to me for like the last year. And, at a certain point, you're like, geez, why do I keep drawing this line in the sand and saying, all right, enough is enough, only to fail again? And that's a hard thing to face. And I want to talk about that because I feel like it's something that I face often. And it's something that I feel like maybe there are other people out there that face it too. Because at a certain point, you draw the line so many times that you're like, what good is it going to do me to mentally draw this line again if I'm only going to break it later on in the future? This is a useless act. But the problem is, by not drawing that line, essentially what you're doing is giving up on yourself, right? It's like, it's frustrating, it's annoying, but you got to keep doing it. You can't give up on yourself. You got to keep drawing that line. And I've done it 100 times, and now it's really to the point where, look, I'm about to do an Ironman, 30 pounds more than I was last year. And, I still got to keep drawing that line. I still got to draw. I'm ready to go into taper right now. And without exercise, my God, what I could weigh in 2 weeks. I can't do the Ironman at 245. That would be incredible. I got to stay focused. I got to keep, and I'm still going to do some light exercise. Taper doesn't mean just don't do anything. It just means, just I'm not going to do any long runs. I'm not going to do any long bikes. But that's where I am right now. Now, before we get into that, I want to rewind about 2 weeks. Because I think this was sort of the low point of my training round here. About 2 weeks ago, I was at work and I go to the gym at lunch for, nearly an hour. It depends what day it is, if I'm busy, whatnot. But I usually, the routine is around 11 o'clock. I go to the gym for an hour. I come back, I eat lunch. And hopefully that eating lunch late keeps me from eating too many snack foods in the afternoon, which is part of my downfall. Is that afternoon snacking period. But anyway, so it was like 11 o'clock and I looked down and I'm like, I was a little bit busy at work. I was just kind of not feeling the workout. I decided, I'm just going to eat lunch. Maybe I'll go later to the gym. I don't know. But, so I sat down, I ate my lunch, and maybe an hour later, I was just like, you know what? I can't not do the gym. I can't risk, at this point, it's laziness, me passing on the gym. So I decided to go, and I went to the gym. I was kind of upset with myself because I don't like eating lunch before a workout, but at this point, I just had no other choice. I wanted to go. I had to go. Belly full of food or whatever. I just had to go. So I got into the gym. Now, one of my other issues with gaining weight has been the wardrobe, right? And again, you guys who are like me and who tend to, gain weight when you're not focused on it, you probably will understand this, which is right now I have a closet of 36-inch waist pants that are not being used. All right. I maybe have a dozen pairs of pants and maybe 8 of them are 36-inch waists and 4 of them are 38s. Now the 36s are all useless to me, yet they still hang there because one day I'm going to fit into them again. At least I'm focused or not focused, but I'm convinced that I can't get rid of these pants. One day I will fit in them again. One day my wardrobe will open up and I'll be able to wear everything that's in there. On top of that, the other thing that I've got going on is my large shirts, t-shirts, workout shirts, they're no longer fitting me as nicely as they were before. So now when I go to the gym, instead of just grabbing a shirt from the closet, because there's XLs and there's probably a couple double XLs in there from way back in the day, and there's mostly larges that I've been using for the last year or two. Now instead of just grabbing a shirt and throwing it in the bag, I got to make sure I grab an XL or at least a shirt that I know that comfortably fits. Because if I grab the L, there's a chance that it's not going to fit when I get to the gym. It's going to be like tight or whatever. But anyway, I grabbed a large shirt, one that I've been wearing and that normally I fit in, and I brought it to the gym. Now that morning I also weighed 235, which has been my high of this cycle. So I was kind of down on myself there. I was down on myself that I went to the gym with a belly full of food. Now I'm throwing this large shirt on and it did not fit right. Now, the shirt had been fitting me all along, and now all of a sudden I'm looking down and I'm like, geez, now there's no one that really goes to my gym, so no one's going to see me in there. I'm not going to be embarrassed. I wasn't lifting. I'll tell you this, there are two problems with this shirt. So number one was, it almost felt like spandex, right? It was just sucking down on parts of my stomach that it hadn't been doing that in the past. And now all of a sudden the shirt was tight and just, my whole upper body felt like I had this like spandex shirt on. It just wasn't a good look for me. And it wasn't like it was halfway up my stomach or just barely below my belly button, but put it this way, there was no way I was tucking the shirt in. It just wasn't going to happen. There was a very slight tenting effect underneath my stomach. We'll call it what it is, right? It wasn't like it was just, like it wasn't a half shirt or anything. There was nothing exposed, but had I say I was doing like weightlifting and doing pull downs, things were going to get ugly. There's going to just be like stuff just bouncing around all over the place. And we don't need that. We just don't need that. So I was upset that I didn't fit in the shirt. Throw that on top of everything. Then I go out and I'm like, I'm mad at myself, right? I'm just mad at myself. And sometimes what I do when I'm mad at myself is I say, you know what? I got to get off of this sort of mental state that I'm in. Let's try to do something challenging, and if I can do it because I'm mad at myself and I want to do it, then I'll feel better about myself. So I got on the treadmill and I set it to, I can't remember the number, but it was about a 9-minute and 15-second mile pace, which is pretty strong for me lately. But historically, last year I ran a half marathon within that pace. I think my half marathon PR is a 9:08 pace. So. And I'm not going to do a half marathon at lunch, right? So I figured I'm going to do this 9:15 pace. I'll kick out 3 or 4 miles. I'll feel good about myself because lately with the weight gain, I haven't really tested myself. So I'm figuring I'll just do this run and I'll accomplish it and I'll feel good. So I set the thing and I'm running. Now here I am running on the treadmill and there's a mirror there. So of course I can look at myself and, with this shirt sucking down on all my upper torso, things are just bouncing ways that it just wasn't looking attractive. Let's just put it that way. And it's very frustrating, because last year I didn't look like this. Last year I looked better. I looked more toned and things weren't as just floppy and saggy and whatever you want to call it. Things looked better last year. And I think normally when I wear a shirt that kind of fits me better, it kind of hides that. So when I'm on the treadmill, so I don't really see it. But with this sucking shirt going on, and now I'm running fast, and it just wasn't a good look for me. So I was anxious about that, and now I'm starting to run, and I'm starting to breathe heavy because I didn't warm up. Of course, I just started it at a 9:15 pace. There was no warm up. I just figured I'd kick into that pace and be fine, which I wasn't. So now I'm breathing heavy. Things are not feeling good. This is not my fitness level anymore. It's just not. So I don't even think I finished a mile, which is embarrassing. I didn't even finish a mile, and I got frustrated and angry at myself, and I stopped it, and I was like, screw it, I'm going back to work. And I got off the treadmill, and I was just frustrated, and I'm angry. And I said to myself, you know what? There's just no way that I'm going to be able to do this Ironman. There's no way. And I texted Stephanie. I said, listen, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do this Ironman. I'm in the gym right now. This is just embarrassing and I feel horrible and I'm gonna pass. I'm just gonna say, forget it. We'll go to Lake Placid. We'll cheer on my friends. We'll bring my daughter. We'll have a good time. It's just not smart at this point for me to try this race when I know I can't even run a mile at 9:15 pace. It's just not a good thing. And I was upset at myself. Like, I was very upset. I'm upset that I let this thing go. I'm upset that I just wasn't able to focus. And, quite frankly, I knew that this was a possibility. I mean, historically speaking, this is really my MO. This has been, ever since I started running in 2014, this is my MO, is that I challenge myself with something that I've never done before. and then I accomplish it. And then once I accomplish it, I can't focus on improving. I can't do it. It doesn't hold my interest. It doesn't challenge me. It doesn't motivate me enough to be better. I am a goal-oriented person. And once that goal is accomplished, as long as it's a big goal, I cannot set a goal to say, all right, let's do it again, but better. For some reason, it just doesn't do anything for me. And it's frustrating and annoying, and I feel like it's a weakness, which is, I'm sharing with you a weakness of mine. So, there you go. There's my personal confession, I guess, to you guys. This is my weakness, right? So I ran my first marathon. I PR'd. Obviously, you run your first, it's going to be a PR. But after 5 more marathons after that, I've never bettered that pace. I did Ironman Lake Placid last year, and then yes, shortly after when I did Ironman Maryland, I did better. But a different course, different time, more experience. I just think that was a different sort of scenario. But now I fast forward a year, I'm ready to do an Ironman again in 2 weeks, and look at me now. There's no way I'm doing 15 and a half hour Ironman in 2 weeks. I'd be lucky to get in within the 17 hours. Right. And I know this from my own experience. This is my experience playing out in my head. So what to do? Right. So I get off that treadmill, and now I'm capitulating. I'm done. I am giving up on Ironman. And in a weird way, it felt good. It felt like a burden was lifted. It felt like, I felt better knowing that I wasn't going to try it. And I was moving on. And, I think it was even that morning where I had signed up for the Hartford Marathon, and I looked into the training programs, and I was like, I was standing there, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to sit here and just go back to work frustrated after not even running a mile. I have time on my hand, I have time to go in the gym. I had available time, and I hopped on the elliptical. I threw it on sort of a low, level, and I just went for a half an hour. And I sweated out, and I felt better about giving up on the Ironman and just focusing on the marathon, because I felt like after I sort of laid out that training program, I felt that it was something that I could do and focus on. And, I think my goal for Hartford is to get through 5-hour marathon, which my PR is 5:16. And I think it's doable. I think that is a realistic, doable goal for me, is to get through 5 hours. And, if I can get myself turned around and focused on that, at least at the time, and even now, I do think that, it's a good thing. Will I be able to focus on it? History says that, it's not really a good thing for me to do that. I've already done a marathon, and it's not, it's not for me, but I do have some bigger plans in the back of my head. And I do think it's a worthy goal. We'll see if I can get through that 5 hours in a few months. But at the time here, so the other day, I'm thinking I'm done with Ironman. And I go home, and obviously I told Stephanie, and then it was time for me to tell my coach. And we're going to take a break here. We're going to take a break here because I think the story kind of starts turning around at this point. And so we'll take a break here, and we'll get back, and we'll talk about how this story sort of turns around. Hey guys, my friend Lauren is creating an incredible resource for runners and triathletes. It's called raceadvisors.com. She has amassed a list of thousands of races, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, marathons, ultramarathons, and triathlons, and anything in between. If you're thinking about running a race, look it up and check out the reviews. Have a favorite race of your own? Look it up. See what others have to say about it. Or better yet, leave a review of your own. raceadvisors.com. Read it, race it, review it. I may not have a lot of hair, but I tell you, I know style when I see it. And I know you guys and gals with the flowing locks, you need something functional to keep that hair out of your face when you go on your daily run. And I have just the thing for you. It's called Greasy Girl Headbands. And I know what it sounds like, but it's not spelled that way. It's GREECIE, girlheadbands.com. They make headbands that are specially designed for the runner to keep that hair out of your face, out of your eyes when you're out there on your daily run. So check them out. GreasyGirlHeadbands.com, GREECIE, and find a design that's perfect for you. All right, we're back here after the break. So, the other day I posted something on Twitter, which was, you hear a lot. People say that it's like a running phrase. It's like, a DNF is better than a DNS, which means if you try your hand at a race and you don't finish it, it's better than not starting at all. And I kind of apply that to myself in this circumstance, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, look, you know what? If you're injured, I do get it. You have a very tough choice to make when you're injured. And you've signed up for a race and you've been training for a race and you've put that commitment in, because the chance of getting really, either worsening the injury or hurting something else, that increases dramatically. And you have to judge for yourself. Now, look, if you have blisters, it's one thing. Maybe you can patch them up and run. If you have like a little calf strain and it's something that you've been training through, maybe it's something you want to try, and especially if you've been focused and training on it the whole time. Maybe it's something you want to just try to run through the pain. I get that. I totally get that. But if you have like a stress fracture or something that can really turn into something bad, then certainly not starting is understandable. Now, if you're undertrained, I think that there is a certain point that, giving up on a race or a goal, if you're not, I get it. I get that too. I mean, if you're focused on setting, a PR, for example, and your training isn't going well, and all of a sudden you hit this race and you decide, you know what, I'm better off sticking in training and trying another time at a different race, rather than burden yourself by finishing a full marathon, and then having to sort of take a long stretch off from training. I get that too. And that makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me. And for me in this situation, I do see that too, because here I am, I'm facing an Ironman in 2 weeks, and then I'm doing a marathon in 3 months from then, right? So, if I do this Ironman, it's going to take away from that marathon training, right? I'm going to have to take a little break after the Ironman before I get back into things. And I know that too from experience from last year when I did Maryland. Just, getting back into training is something difficult about it. You got to kind of take your time and make sure you're healthy and just, work your way back into training. So the chances of this Ironman taking away something from my training for the Hartford Marathon is certainly something to consider. But, on the other hand, I'm going to Lake Placid and I'm bringing my daughter, and she has been expecting to watch me do this Ironman for a long time. Now, she also knows that I'm undertrained. She knows that Dad hasn't been focused. Dad's upset at himself. Dad's mad. Dad doesn't look the same as he looked last year. It just, but the problem with that is this. How do I quit? How do I not start this race and make it look like I'm not quitting in the eyes of my daughter? What is the alternative? The alternative is starting, telling her that Dad didn't focus. Dad didn't, Dad did not train hard. Dad may not finish in 17 hours. Dad may pull himself out of the race. He may miss a cutoff. He may do, and if that happens, I think that there's a lesson in that. And the lesson is I didn't give up. And the chances of succeeding, they're there. There's a chance that I finish this thing, in which case it's all worth it. But there's a chance that I don't finish. And if that's the case, the lesson becomes I got to do it again, or I got to do something like this again, or I have to achieve I have to do something accomplished that'll give me like a feeling of accomplishment, something that will show her that I didn't give up in the long run. Something that will say, all right, you know what? Dad didn't finish the Ironman, but then he crushed the marathon, or then something else that, that says I didn't give up in the long run. So I'm thinking, geez, how do I tell this kid I'm not going to start this race? I don't know. I feel like I can't. I feel like it's very difficult for me to say Dad's not doing the race because he didn't train. As opposed to saying Dad tried his best and either failed or succeeded or what have you. I got to say, if you guys are going to track me in this race, obviously I'm leaning towards doing it. And let me continue the story. I'm telling the story horribly. Anyway, I called my coach the night I decided not to do Lake Placid. I texted him. And I told him, look, there's a good chance I'm not going to do this thing. I'm thinking about bailing. And I kind of expected him. Now, he's been watching me train, and he knows I haven't been doing every single thing, but, he also knows that, yeah, I've been training, Some I've been doing, maybe the things he prescribes, I probably do like 60 to 70%. He says that, as long as I'm doing 90% to 100%, if I'm doing over 90, I don't have to worry. But I'm really, realistically only doing 60 to 70% of what he's been prescribing for me. And again, this isn't his fault. It's my fault. And I know it is. The way my schedule works, the way my life works, it's just, it's impossible to nail things down. I'm not going to get into this now, but, instead of, I almost half expected him to say, all right, if you don't think you can do it, then maybe it's a good choice to bail from the race. But he didn't. He said, look, you got a few weeks left. There's no harm in just doing the work and seeing what you can do and at least giving it a go. I mean, I'm not injured. I'm not scared of being injured in Ironman. I'm not. I think I know myself well enough. Look, I can just keep grinding on those pedals. I think I can get through the swim. I'm fairly confident I can get through the swim. I can keep grinding those pedals on the bike. The bike is going to be a pain for me. About 2 weeks ago, I did 65 miles. And the last 5 miles, I was in a lot of pain, a lot of back pain. Things just weren't working right for me. And the thought of doing another 50 miles on top of that was not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. So, and I don't know that I could have done it that day. So I'm upset about that. And, but the fact of the matter was, I've paid for the race. I can't defer it. I can't get out of it. There's no harm in saying, all right, don't quit just yet. Get to the race, bring all your stuff, and see how you feel. And now here he is, my coach. Instead of telling me not to race, he's telling me, look, you've done a lot of work. There's no sense in not trying. Just, as long as you're not scared of injury, you might as well just get out there and try. And all of a sudden, the wheels started to change in my brain. And, I thought about that workout that I did and how I gave up on it. And I'm like, I could not have set myself up to fail worse than I did that day. Eating lunch, then going to the gym, getting angry at myself stupidly for wearing that stupid shirt, getting angry at myself for looking in the mirror and looking like a slob. That's just, a mental thing. And I could not have harmed myself worse mentally by trying to challenge myself at that moment, as opposed to giving me something that was more doable and achievable. I should have just maybe set it to 10-minute mile and ran 5 miles, and I would have been happy with that. And that would have been easy to achieve. Although still, I don't usually work out after lunch. Like, you don't work out right after you eat. That's stupid. So, and the reason I don't know if I would have been able to do any of that stuff, because I don't do that. I don't ever train on a full stomach. If I'm doing a long run in the morning, I carb up, I do whatever I need to do. And it's a routine. This was a lunch. This was a meal that I put in my stomach right before I worked out, which wasn't a good idea. So all that stuff, I might as well have written a prescription for myself to fail, and to put myself in that position. So all of a sudden the wheels start turning around and I start thinking maybe I should just try it. And again, I'm like, all right, bring this stuff to Lake Placid. One of the things I had to do a couple weeks ago is I had to order a new wetsuit because my one from last year just doesn't fit, understandably. Obviously, we talked about the wardrobe. The wetsuit is part of it. And last year's wetsuit, I just didn't even try it on because I knew it wouldn't fit. I mean, it's Lycra, but it ain't that Lycra. It's, so I got the new wetsuit and I decided after talking to my coach, Nick, that I was going to try on the new wetsuit. I did. I showed Stephanie and I think I looked more pregnant than her in it. But, the thing is, it was comfortable. It fit. It's workable. I can race in it. So I can't use that as an excuse. It would have been a convenient excuse. So I don't want to buy a new wetsuit, but unfortunately I can't use it as an excuse. The thing fits well enough to race in, even though, I don't look like someone that should be trying their hands at an Ironman right now, but it looks fine. And listen, don't get me wrong either. I'm not the only one that's going to be, 235 pounds out there, and that's fine. I've seen people finish this race that I'm like, wow, geez, like, I don't know, it's not a body type thing. You can race when you're a little overweight, and you could still finish it. Hopefully, I'll prove that. So now all of a sudden, I'm back on the I'm going to race thing, and I would say yesterday I did a ride with Laura and Amy to two local triathletes that are doing Lake Placid. We did a 65-mile ride, and they actually did a little bit more. I ended a little early, but I had to go home. But that's my excuse. But anyway, that was my plan, to do a 65-mile ride. Pretty much the same ride I did a few weeks ago that I hurt miserably. Now, we went out there, and it's a little different. We're riding with people. We stopped a couple times to use the bathroom. We stopped once to buy water because I lost a water bottle along the way. We stopped a bunch of times. Now, I leave my clock running when I stop. I don't ever pause it. I just feel like in a race, I don't, you're not going to pause it in a race. Wouldn't pause it in real life. And when we finished, we must have stopped for at least a half an hour total worth of time, if not more. And when we finished, the pace was like it was really close. It was like 11.9 miles an hour. Now, 11.9 miles an hour pretty much gets me through the cutoff. And this was with stopping for at least a half an hour, right? And when I think about last year's Ironman, I had a couple of spots. I had a busted helmet that cost me 20 minutes in transition. And I had one flat tire that cost me about 10, 15 minutes when I was out there. You take those things away, and that's just another, half an hour I have to play with in terms of, I finished in 15:57. So now you add that half hour back. So now we're talking 15 and a half hours. Am I an hour and a half slower than I was last year? Probably, but I'm pretty darn close to that 17-hour cutoff, I'm thinking. And now the back didn't feel that bad after I got off the bike yesterday. We averaged, with stopping so many times, we averaged a pace that might get me through the cutoff. Even with stopping, might get me through the cutoff. So, man, obviously I have another, 45, 50 miles more, 52 miles more to do on top of 65, which is daunting. And the thought of doing those hills out in Lake Placid is very scary. But, again, is it scary enough to not try it at this point? I don't think so. And if I can get off the bike and have 6 hours to do a marathon, I feel like I could pace myself to 6 hours. It might be difficult with the hills, and I might be cutting it real close. to that deadline. Who knows? Maybe I'll be the last one to finish. But, and geez, the thought of my daughter being awake at midnight for having me come through, it's way past her bedtime. But is it possible that I could finish? And when I ask myself that question, I think the answer is yeah, it's possible. It may not be probable. It may not be smart. It may not be something I'm ready for, but it's possible. And why would I give up a chance at achieving something if it was possible? Whether that chance be 5%, 10%, 15% chance, I would probably guess it's about a 30 to 40% chance of me finishing this race in 17 hours. So if it's possible, why would I not try? And with that in my mind, I can't picture myself being out there at, say, the half marathon point, with especially like recent goings on within my family. I told you about that sort of family issue we had. All right, it's kind of, like I said, I hate sort of airing my family dirty laundry here. And really, it's not dirty laundry. It's tragic. It's, my nephew, 23 years old, riding a motorcycle, and he was killed. Got into an accident in South Carolina, and he was killed. And it's tragic. It's horrible. It's horrific. And I had to take off and go to South Carolina for a few days and spend it with my family, which was, as an experience, it was, I don't know how to say it other than say tragic. It's just, seeing my brother that way and my mom that way. It was, I don't know. It was sort of, it gets your mind racing, right? It just gets your mind thinking about things that you don't normally think about. And I can't imagine me having that on my mind at mile 13 all this way into the race. And then knowing that my daughter is up there waiting for me and waiting to see whether or not dad can finish, and wondering how much guts her dad has. How much is in there. I can't imagine not getting through that finish line in 17 hours. So that's what's going to be on my mind. When you see someone so young, and guys, I mean, some of you might be sitting there thinking like, all right, he's on a motorcycle and, he was going the speed limit. We spoke to the police. He was going the speed limit. A guy turned into him and didn't see him. He just didn't see him. And the guy wasn't drinking. And the guy, God knows what he must be going through right now. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of these situations where it wasn't anybody's fault. And, 23 years old, and it's tragic. And it makes you think about life, and it makes you think about what's fair and unfair. And it makes you think about all these things that we do, and how every day I wake up and I go to work and I sit at a desk for 8-9 hours, whatever it is. And what's it for? What do you do this stuff for? And I look at my daughter and it makes me, how am I raising her? How am I making sure that the time that I spend with her in her youth is optimal, is optimizing her life, is getting her ready for what she's going to face in life, and then you see something like this happen and it just makes you think about everything. It puts everything in context. And that's what I'm going to be carrying with me through the late stages of this race, the early stages with this race. Anytime where I think about not finishing, that's what I'm going to be thinking about. Now I've done this in the past, and I've had tragedy sort of, motivate me or inspire me and push me forward. And typically what happens in those moments is, at a certain point, it lasts and it motivates you to go a little further, but it becomes more of a battle between you and the task at hand. So yeah, that's going to motivate me and that's going to push me forward, those things. But it's not going to be the ultimate thing that gets me through that line. The ultimate thing that gets me through that line is going to be me, and my body and how I've prepared it, which isn't satisfying enough. Now, I don't want you guys to track me. You can track me, that's fine. But I don't want you to track me, and cheer for me and hope that I get through the finish line, and just hope. 'Cause you know what? I didn't train hard enough for this, and I'm not asking for your sympathy, and I'm not asking for you to cheer me on, because this is not, there's nothing I despise more. Well, this isn't true. There's plenty I despise more, but there's nothing that I watch. I've seen people run races untrained, and having people root for them. And I don't want you to root for me because I'm not trained. I didn't do the work, and kind of like the people that ask for that sympathy and the train, or the people that treat it as the greatest accomplishment of the world because they finished a race that they didn't train for. The battle isn't the race. The battle is the training. It's the focus. It's putting in the time. And if you deserve it, in the end, you achieve it. So, for example, my first marathon was wonderful and great. I never did it before, and I put the work in. It was wonderful and great. My second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth marathons, I didn't put the work in. I still achieved the marathon. Yeah, I'm still sort of proud of those medals, but you know what? I didn't do the work. I didn't do the work that was needed to improve. So yes, it's an accomplishment. I got the medal. Congratulations, me. But I can only blame one thing for not doing better, is myself. So when you watch me, or if you track me, and I don't finish, that's certainly within the realm of possibility. And I don't want you to feel bad for me. I didn't train. I don't deserve it. And if you watch me and I finish and I just barely get under, you can feel happy for me. If you want, you can, but I'm not asking for it. I'm not begging you to feel happy for me. I didn't do the work. I might not deserve it. I might not. Now, if I cross that finish line, I will be ecstatic. I will be happy. I will look at my daughter and I will feel like I accomplished something for her. And for her sake, because I just don't want to look like a failure to her. I don't want, I don't know. It's just, obviously that's a great motivator for me. It's just to show her that I did it and I didn't give up. It's important. for me to do that and to show her that. Now, I don't know. If I don't do it, it's going to have to be a lesson. It's going to have to be a teachable moment. It's going to have to be, I got to come back from that. And maybe I'll have to do another one and I'll have to do it again. Or maybe I'll sign up. I've been talking about possibly doing the Mont Tremblant half next year with the same group of guys that I had on, Jim Simcoe and Joe Bartlett. They're doing that next year. And I might do it. And I don't know. Maybe a half iron is better for me. Anyway, I don't know. But anyway, if you track me, just know that I didn't train as hard as I should have, and I don't deserve to finish in any better time than 17 hours if I do finish in 17 hours. So here's the thing. Here's the final note. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to give it my best. I'm prepared mentally for pain. I'm prepared to deal with adversity. I'm loaded with things to occupy my mind to push me forward. I am, it's not one of those things where I'm going to take that starting line with an aggressive attitude, like go get it. It's going to be one of those things where I take that starting line and say to myself, pace yourself, be very efficient with your motions and your movement and how you get through transition, how you get through the swim. Don't push the swim. Now, if I was racing this race, I would push the swim this year. That's how I would do better. That's where I would focus, because I feel like I left some things out there last year. I swam very wide, and I swam about 2 3/4 miles as opposed to 2.4 because of how wide I swam. At least that's what my GPS said. And yet I still get out of the water at 121 or somewhere around that, 124, 120, something like that. I don't know. This year, you know what? If I get out of the water in 140, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to get in transition. I'm going to be very deliberate. Hopefully I don't have any issues. I'm going to get on that bike and I'm not going to push it. I'm going to try to get up those hills and take it one hill at a time. I'm not going to push it. I'm going to just try to stay within a manageable pace. Manageable pace. If I get off that bike, that will be a very sort of distinguishing point for the race. If I get off that bike within the cutoff. And then I'll have, if I have especially I need about 6 hours, I think, to finish that marathon, because I got to pace myself on that too. And it's got to be a run walk, and it's got to be persistent, and it's got to be, efficient with the hills. The hills are such an issue out there, so it's got to be a focused precision. And then towards the end, it's going to be a battle of mental toughness and physical pain and how I deal with it. And where I can get my mindset to be, and and we'll see how it works. We'll see how it works. So, like I said, don't feel bad for me if I don't finish. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. And likewise, if I go through that finish line and I break that time, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy that I did that for my sake and my daughter's sake. But again, if I finish, it wasn't because I trained really hard. I didn't train as hard as last year. I gained a lot of weight. I'm going to look at those finish year pictures. I'm going to put them next to each other from the one from last year. It's going to be a joke. How much weight I've gained. It's a joke. But, I'll probably drop a couple pounds the next couple weeks, hopefully get a little bit more of that off, and we'll see how it goes from there. So that's where we are. I don't know. I guess it's kind of I don't mean to end this on on a downbeat. I really don't. I kind of feel like I brought you into bad territory here, the second half of the podcast, but that's reality. It is what it is. And in 2 weeks, we're going to find out how far I can go and whether or not I can do this. I do have, I think the experience from last year and doing it twice, it gives me a better frame of mind. It gives me sort of a better place to work from and see where it goes and see how I can attack this race. And we'll go from there and we'll see what we do. So, next week, there's a couple of guests I've been trying to get on. I'm working on trying to get John Young on, and I'm working on trying to get Susan, Haag. I think that's I don't know how to pronounce your name, Susan. I'm sorry. It's Haag. Haag. But that's, you're going to have to teach me, Susan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Either way, if you get it wrong, either way, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, On that note, we're going to get you some guests on the next coming weeks. We'll try to get a guest for next week, and then the week after will be the recap of the Ironman, and then the week after that, we'll bring the other guest on. Hopefully we can get them all. I'm very excited about it. Very excited about the future of the podcast. And what a downtrodden. I feel like, now I'm talking on a high note. So I'm sorry if I brought you down there. And until next week, always remember, when it comes to running, I'm no expert. I'm just ordinary.